Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the book Refuge and welcome to another weekly reading wrap up. So it's early on Saturday morning, which is nice. The last couple Saturdays I've had stuff going on and so filming hasn't been exactly what I wanted it to be. Last week was Sophie Lark week. Oh my gosh, did you guys see that interview with her and Mr. Lark? It was adorable. It was amazing. It's up on my channel if you want to watch it and you missed it. But it was almost 2 hours of question and answer with her and, again, her husband, who does all of her marketing and promotion, basically. They're a husband and wife team, and they're wonderful. They're really wonderful. Also, I'm drinking my coffee because it's so early. And I haven't shown off this mug in a long time, so I thought that I would. It says, I read dark romance, and it's from Literary Enchantments, who is actually a channel member here. Her Chapters We Love is her channel name. She has her own channel, but she recently had some new uploads to her store, so I'll link her store down below because she'd been pretty busy, so there wasn't a lot of updates, but she has some beautiful mugs and shirts there, and they're just amazing. And then I'm also, this is my Fugly Barbie shirt, but I just love it. It's rainy and kind of cold today, which is amazing, so I finally can wear a sweater. But I've shown this before, but it's romance novels are my therapy, and I just love it. I'm not a sponsor for, like, or they're not sponsoring me or anything, but, you know, I just like to show off my fun stuff. So we're going to dive into the books from this week, where I have to say, I was kind of pre-gaming for the historical romance readathon, it appears, because I was just in a historical mood, which I was so happy to be because I hadn't been in that mood for a while. I'd been in the mafia zone, as y'all know, and because of that, I had just a lot of books that were just hanging out and waiting to be read, and I'm happy that I got through some of them. So let's go ahead and dive in to what I read this week. Let's go. So the first one that I finished was The Risk by S.T. Abbey, which I just think is funny because it's stabby. This is the first, and I think it's a 5-book series, which really they're each pretty short. Like this first one was 100 pages. So I think if you read it all together, if you got all 5 of them, they're on Kindle Unlimited. You could just binge through them all. This book was recommended to me by a lot of people, but as I shared in my TBR for June, I have a TBR tin box that shows up every now and then, and my prompts include asking certain booktubers for a book recommendation. And so this one was from Jessica at Peace Love Books, and she had just read this. And so Jess and I, we've been, you know, casual friends on the booktubes for a while, but we have like, our tastes are very interesting in where they connect and everything. So she was like, I'm nervous to pick one. And I was like, it's okay. I read a lot of the books you recommend anyway, but just recommend one to me. So I hadn't read this one yet. I definitely, so my thoughts about it, I gave this 4 stars. The setup of this is it's kind of like a Criminal Minds situation. There is this woman who is pretty brutally murdering men who are bad, and I'm not meaning bad like they're bad, but she is serial killing bad men. And there is this FBI agent or cop who is on the case, and she is very aware of him, and then they end up meeting each other, and she really likes him a lot, and they're kind of pulled into this relationship, and it's kind of risky for her because he's not a dumb cookie, you know. It's kind of risky for her to do that because if he were to figure it out, then whatever. So again, I only read the first one mostly because I wasn't in the mood for this kind of a story. I appreciated this story. I feel like it's very compelling, and I'm not going to discount finishing it because I know that this was quite a ride for some of my friends. Like I know Tiffany binged through this, Jess obviously binged through this, and a lot of people have recommended it to me. But it definitely is like a romantic suspense in some elements, and I just wasn't there. So I gave it 4 stars. I think that if you love Criminal Minds, if you like serial killer books, this could be great. And it is nice that it's a female serial killer. Ooh, my eyeball. So give it a try if you want. Then I listened to Where Dreams Begin. Weird eyelash. Which is Elisa Kleypas. I've been pulling the Lisa Kleypas cards quite often from my tin, which is totally fine with me, because I'm trying to get through her backlist, but I also don't want to be done with her backlist. So I've basically been reading like one a month, which will hopefully last me for a while. I still have maybe like 5 or 6 to read, so I'm taking my time. But this is absolutely beautiful one. This one is about Zachary Bronson, who is a made man. He used to be a bare knuckle boxer until he had enough money to buy a part in a ship, and then he became a shipping magnate, and now he's trying to have his sister have a season. But his sister's a little bit older than she's supposed to be, and they're not really polished because, you know, they were raised a certain way. First off, I'll tell you, this reminded me a lot of North and South in the setup of who they are. And he definitely reminded me of a Mr. Thornton in the way that I listened to this, and he has that, like, that uncultured accent because of where they grew up. And he's very, like, forward about how he's feeling about our heroine, who I'll explain her in a second, and very much, like, puts himself out there pretty quickly, whereas the heroine is kind of like, this isn't appropriate for you to feel this way. So it very much felt like Thornton and Margaret in a lot of ways, if you love North and South. But of course there's more smexy times happening. So then we have Lady Holly Taylor, who is a widow. She's been a widow for 3 years. She has a small daughter, and she loved her husband. She loved him. And she's just now slowly coming out of mourning 3 years later. And so she's been staying with her husband's family, who is a wonderful family. This isn't the case of, that's not the problems. You know, the family's not the problem, the whatever's not the problem. But she is feeling a bit like suffocated by it because they're making decisions for her out of love. But it's really, she's starting to come out of the fog now, and she doesn't know what to do. So she meets Zach when she goes to her first ball, and she's just feeling overwhelmed. And so she sneaks out, and she happens to stumble upon Zach, who is waiting for his paramour, and he thinks that it's his paramour, and he starts kissing her. And when I tell you that that kiss was both so sexually charged and amazing, but also heartbreaking, because the first thing that Holly thinks when she's being kissed by this man she doesn't know is that he's stolen my love's last kiss from my lips. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was dying. Oh, it hurt. Lisa Kleypas, man, can just punch you in the throat with like one line. But anyway, that leads to a misunderstanding where she's like, I am not the person you're supposed to see. And so she like leaves. He finds out who she is, and he wants her, but he knows that he needs to go about it in a particular way. So what he ends up doing is he ends up offering her an obscene amount of money if she will come and live with him and his mother and his sister and teach them how to come out into society. Now, this is a very risky proposition for her because it's going to ruin her reputation to be living at his home, no matter what. However, the amount of money that he's offering will give her daughter a dowry and a future. And she's like, well, I don't really care what people will say about me. I'm not trying to get married again. I'm not trying to have anything happen to me. That'll be enough money for me to have a little place to live and then to give my daughter an inheritance when it happens. Because she's just not going to get much from her husband's family. Like, they just don't have enough for that. So I loved this. I loved this. I did give it 4 stars. It's not my favorite Kleypas, mostly because Holly was very frustrating, okay? She was very frustrating, and I understand. She had a wonderful husband. This Zach is very overwhelming, but he laid himself on the line again and again for her, and she shunned him almost one too many times for me. However, the ending of this book was very emotional and very beautiful, and it won me back over. So I gave this 4 stars. it's very, very good. I believe this one was written in 2000. Yeah, this one was written in 2000. So, 21 years old already. Then I finished the arc for An Extraordinary Lord by Anna Harrington. This is coming out on Tuesday, or like already is out. When I went to Barnes & Noble, you could already buy it. This is the third book in a series, and I haven't read the first two. I have them on my TBR for soon because they're on AnyPlay, so you can listen to those for free on there if you want. This had a very interesting setup. There is this barrister and this girl who is a criminal and a thief, and they end up needing to work on a case together because there are some riots happening that are causing a lot of damage and a lot of problems, and so they end up running into each other and needing to work together. There were some cool aspects about this that got me kind of excited. I strangely was getting, I know this is weird, but I strangely was getting Esmeralda and Captain Phoebus vibes, which I know is weird, but there's literally a place called Court of Miracles, like there is in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, where like all these thieves and like criminals work together to stay alive. It also reminded me a little bit of, just those kind of like criminal underbelly things, but they're like a found family type of situation. However, I was kind of bored with the romance of them. There was a lot of sexual tension. There was even a really amazing fellatio scene in an alley that I was not expecting to have it. Like, the feelings were just too much. But I don't know. I just didn't jive. I just didn't jive with it. And I feel bad about it. But like I said, I was not quite in the historical mood yet, even though I'd read a couple. Like, I'm always in the mood for a Kleypas, so that's different. But this one just wasn't vibing for me. So I gave this 3.5 stars. But I think that for others, it's at least a 4-star. It just wasn't like quite working for me. Then, I should have grabbed it. I reread The Heir by Sophie Lark. I did a full reread. So here's the thing. A lot of times I do little rereads here and there where I will just pick out a book and read my favorite parts. But because I'm preparing for The Spy, which comes out the end of July, I am trying to put the clues together that Sophie has laid out for me. And I just was in a mood to binge The Spy, or The Heir. So I did. I reread this, and I actually had my rating go up 0.5 star. The first time I read this, I gave it a 3.5 star. If you recall, I wasn't too happy with this one. Because we had come off of, which is funny, we had come off of The Heavy Crown. Things were very intense. And then I read The Heir, and it was just so much backstory. However, it needs it there to set up what's happening, because we've went to this whole new world, which is like, mafia, Harry Potter, and there's just a lot going on, and you need that setup. I was just being a crabby pants the first time. This time around, knowing where it's all going to go, I just tried to soak it up and appreciate the Dean chapters in here, appreciate the setup of the Kingmaker world, and I was trying to pay attention to the clues that she's leaving because Sophie's amazing and I want to figure out who the spy is, so I'm doing my due diligence. So I gave this one 4 stars this time. It still is tough because I can tell, and after the interview with Sophie, I know that this is true because she said so. This is a friends to lovers, where most of hers are enemies to lovers or arranged marriage or something like that. And this one is a friends to lover, and she's wanted to write a friends to lover because that is her real life love story, is a friends to lovers, and she's best friends with her husband. But it's difficult to write it and have the tension be real. So she said, I knew I needed a third person to make this be a love triangle and like cause issues and make the drama. And I see that more now and I appreciate it. I still think it goes on too long. That's my issues. And since this is a friends to lovers, and they've known each other since they were born, basically, their families are best friends, they're raised almost as cousins, I just still don't believe that Anna would think the worst of him so quickly, like immediately, and then listen to what Dean's saying. So Heir always doesn't like me. So that was my issue, and I understood it a little better this time, and I skimmed some parts of it, but other people might not feel the way that I do. And Dean was amazing this time around. I really appreciated him. So there we go. Then I read Kiss of Redemption by Maggie Cole. This is the first in her I can't remember what it's called, but there's actually a readathon going on in her readers group right now, where they're rereading all of these books this summer. And I'm not following it perfectly because I'm kind of just reading them as they come along. And I'll be honest, I want her Mafia stuff more than I want these ones. But I still love her writing and how she tells the story. And I plan to read all of her backlist. So this one is an interesting story. So it starts with this guy getting out of prison after 10 years on good behavior. And he was in prison for killing our heroine's brother. Supposedly, okay? It wasn't like a first degree. I don't even know what the charge was, but it was one that was like a 15-year, it was like a 15-year sentence, and he got out after 10 for good behavior, and he's on parole. And she had liked him when they were young, because I think when he went to prison, he was only 18, and she was 14, and her brother died, and he wouldn't say who did it or whatever, so he went to prison as the one who did it. Oh, there's a birdie. Hi, birdie. What are you doing? And now he's out, and they happen to be living near each other. He also thought that she had died the same night that the brother died because her grandparents took her away and hid her. So he didn't know that she was alive. So he spent those 10 years thinking that she was dead, and now she's alive. And there immediately is still chemistry between these two, which I don't know that there was really chemistry back when they were children because she was younger than him. But she always liked him, and that's part of the guilt that she's carried, is that maybe she was overlooking things that were happening because she liked him, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, this was really good. So then the story of it is that they're trying to figure out, well, he's trying to figure out he's trying to prove who really killed her brother, and he won't tell her who it is because he doesn't want her involved. But then we get introduced to like his whole family, which is who the books are going to be about, and I definitely want to continue. So I gave this 4 stars, and it was a good time. Then I read Daddy's Angel by K.A. Knight. I was reading this on Father's Day because it was the one that kept coming up as a daddy kink for Father's Day because we are sick, twisted bitches, that's for sure. This was my second K.A. Knight, Den of Vipers having been the first one that I read. And I've always kind of had her, or this author, on my radar to want to read more. And so I was like, let's go ahead and read this. This is a boyfriend's dad book. Of course, they don't get together till they're an ex, but they definitely are having feelings before then. So our heroine, she is a burlesque dancer. And the dad, I think he is mid-40s, almost 50, I'm not sure. But she starts dating this guy. And these two meet each other when he brings her home for just to meet his dad. And immediately there's chemistry between them. And they're both like, oh shit, I'm with your son. And he's like, you're with my son. We'll stay away from each other. But the son, I think it's Jake, he can't really handle her being a burlesque dancer, and he starts to get jealous and almost abusive, and so they end up breaking up, and she decides she wants revenge, and she goes to see the dad, and they start doing it, and it becomes apparently clear that they both have some daddy kink stuff to work out, to enjoy together, and they do. And so I gave this book 3.5 stars, okay? And here's why this wasn't better for me. Number one, this book was too long. This book was too long. There was too much sex in it. And I know who's saying that. I'm aware of the words coming out of my mouth. But it was too much of it. And then for how dramatic the plot got, and then how the hero decided to break things up, it was just too much. It was too much. This story was trying to do too many things. I honestly think that this should have been a Touch of Taboo size novella, you know, like a Katie Roberts situation where it's like 150 pages, because the beginning part where they're not together, like when she's still dating his son, that's too long. And then once they're starting to fuck, there's just too much of it. Too much of it. And then there's showing people not agreeing that they're together and the back and forth of it. And it was a mess. And I was like, this doesn't need to be a thing. This doesn't need to be a thing. So I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I read 3 of Hearts by Lillian Lark. This is a paranormal menage between a harpy, a demon, and a werewolf. I follow Lillian Lark on TikTok. This is a TikTok made me read it situation. And this is going to be part of a series. She has another one that will be coming out called Pair of something. I don't know if that one's going to be a menage, but it's going to be about the heroines, like sisters who are harpies. And they don't stay with their men, is usually how that goes. They're almost like a praying mantis. Like they get a man to get them pregnant and then they either leave or even kill him. But to contend with this woman, we have these 2 men. So we have this werewolf who he first interacts with the heroine, I think on a case. Like she's some kind of detective or cop or something. I'm not actually sure. Plot, who needs it? And he realizes that she's his mate because he's a wolf and he can tell. The thing is, he was previously in a relationship with this demon. And this demon loves him. And he's very, hurt that this werewolf left him. And then, when they all end up around each other, this demon realizes, oh, you have a mate. So I wasn't good enough for you. But the thing is, they might all 3 of them be mates. Because the demon and the wolf, they still feel pulled together. So this is a menage with MMF situations. This also has a surprise pregnancy. And this was very, very good. The writing was a little bit rough and it actually was sticking out to me. And honestly, I wish it was a little bit longer because once we got to the point of figuring out, my favorite part in either a menage or a reverse harem is once we figure out our dynamic, I like to see it explored. I don't like figuring out the dynamic to be the complete pinnacle of the story, because just because you figured it out doesn't mean you're done negotiating what's happening and how it's going to work out for you guys. So I wanted a bit more of that. This also involves our demon is a bit dominant, and there are some fun scenes of play between them all where he's bossing people around. So enjoy. So I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I'm going to read more by her. I know she has also a robot romance. I'm here for it. Then we really started to ramp up on our historical binge, and I read Scoundrel My Heart by Lorraine Heath. This was in my June TBR as one that was a new release. This was great. I mean, this was so good. So a lot of my friends have already read this book. A lot of people maybe know what this one is about. But it's about Lady Catherine Lambert, who needs to get married for a title. And there is Lord Griffin Stanwyck, who is a second son. And here's the thing. This aunt or this grandmother, I think it was a grandmother, she had made this, she laid down the gauntlet that there is this cottage that is for Catherine, but she has to marry a titled gentleman to have it, because marrying a second son, and so Griffin isn't going to have a chance because he's a second son, and she wants her cottage, and she wants something that belongs to her that can't be taken away. And her grandmother has said that second sons are selfish and aren't ever trying to make it ahead. There's just her grandmother just had some shitty views on second sons, okay, and not seeing them as individual people. So there's this guy that she's specifically going after. Well, something happens with Griffin's family where they have to go away for a time. It's not even, I think it's about a year. Is it? How long is it? It's not a super long time. I think it's only about a year. which also didn't totally make sense for all the things that happened during that year, but it's okay. It's okay. So she ends up where she's pursuing this Duke is pursuing her, and he comes back into town, and he now is running a gambling hell, and he is going to make, not a gambling hell, he makes this club that is only for second sons and unwed women who can basically matchmake with each other without being like seen by everyone else. And so this was a dream that he'd always had. And so when she hears about this club that's been started, she knows who did it. And she goes to find him. And yeah, they just enter into this like dance between the two of them where it's very clear that they both, these feelings that they had before, he isn't hiding them anymore. But also he knows the dream that she has. And so he wants her to have it. And I'm not explaining this book well. I gave this 5 stars, okay? There are more articulate people about this than me. But what's so beautiful about it is they both were so selfless for the other person. And this was riding along at like a 4-star. I was very much enjoying myself. I listened to the audio of this, and it was done by Kate Redding, which was marvelous. And then they both made a grand gesture for the other, and I was done. I was like, 5-star. So I love this book. Then I finished The Fae King's Prize by Jamie Schlosser. This is, I don't know if there's going to be more in this series, but this was book 3 in the Fae King series. This one is this is part of this series where all these Fae Kings were cursed to be blind until they meet their fated mate, and then when they have sex on their wedding night, they will get their sight back and they will have found their mate, and it's all happy for everybody. It's great. I gave this one 4 stars. I don't really want to go into the whole plot of it right now, but I do love this series. I just think that each of them had more plot going on than was like needed. And I'm not even meaning like ratio of sex to plot. I just mean there's so much political stuff going on, and there's so many characters involved because all the characters we've met in other books are also in these ones. So this one was different in the fact that like our heroine at the beginning gets kidnapped and brought to Fairy, because something that happened in Fairy is that a long time ago there was this disease that went through that killed most of the females. So there are females that get, women who get kidnapped from the human world and brought here to become breeders because they need people. And our king, that's what happened to his mother. His mother was one of these women who was bought at an auction. And so he goes around busting those up in his kingdom. He stops these auctions from happening and will bring the women back if they want. Well, this one time that he goes, he hears his mate speaking, and he knows that it's his mate. And so he doesn't take her back. He kidnaps her. But because of the way Jamie Schlosser reads this, it's not your typical captor-captive thing. Like, it is a captor-captive story, but it's not a, like, dark romance captor-captive. Like, he kidnaps her because he wants to woo the crap out of her. And also, this hero is a griffin. So, he can turn into a griffin, which is pretty cool. Then I read Not Quite a Lady by Loretta Chase. And now this was just a book that was by my bedside, which is funny. I don't talk about that a lot, but what I do is like on TikTok or Instagram, when I see someone like put in their story or on one of their posts where they're like, this book just slayed me, someone will do that. If I own it, and generally I do this with ones that I own, I'll put it in a stack by my bedside. And then if I'm having trouble picking a book, I'll be like, let's read one of these that someone absolutely loved. So this happens to be the 4th book in a series. This is my 2nd Loretta Chase. I just recently bought a shit ton more because this is the 4th book in the series and I want to read the other ones. But this book was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. So this is about Darius Carsington, who he is the youngest brother, and he's an intellectual, but he's kind of a snooty one, and he's not really doing anything to produce any money or anything. So his father says you have 2 options. You get married and have that, or I have this land that is currently not profitable and I will give you 1 year to make it profitable, and then that you can have the living from that land to support you using your brain and shit. So, of course, he agrees because he doesn't want to get married, of course, because what guy does? And then we have our heroine, Lady Charlotte, who is all about not getting married. She is 27 years old, and in the first chapter of this book, in the prologue, we find out that when Charlotte was 16, she was seduced by her tutor and had a baby. Her father didn't know about this, but her stepmother, who's not that much older than her, helped her have the baby and give it to a family, and she never wants to be hurt the way that she was before and discarded by a man, so she just will not get married. And she is on the land that is next to where Darius comes, and they have this really cute meet cute where he is watching dragonflies mate and studying it, and she happens to stumble over him while he is laying on the ground by a pond, and she almost falls in, and he saves her. And so they have this like hate to love, because he's calling her stupid and she's calling him, well, you're the one laying on the ground by a pond, and they have this thing. And then her stepmother ends up volunteering her to help him get his place up to scratch, because she has an eye for that. And so that ends up being kind of a forced proximity thing, because they're seeing each other every day, and they just have this crazy chemistry. And for the first part of the book, it's that chemistry where they're like, I hate you and I'll kiss you kind of thing. And this makes Charlotte like very scared, because she does not want to fall for someone. She does not want to get into the same situation that she did before. And Darius is just bewildered by her. Like, he can't stop thinking about her, and he wants to hate her, but he thinks that she's amazing at the same time. And he sees how she's able to handle gentlemen who are like trying to make a move on her, and the way that she's able to like sidestep that and get around it. And he just thinks it's so amazing. Like, he is obsessed with her, and it's really cool. Like, it's really cool to see it happen. And so what makes this one so beautiful is that we do address her son. Like, that is a part of this, like what happens with this child that she had 10 years ago. And the way that the hero deals with it is so beautiful. Like, I can't, guys, I can't even tell you just how wonderful Darius was. But it was a journey. I love the banter that Loretta Chase does. Again, this is the second book that I've read by her, and I still love Lord of Scoundrels more. I do. But this was 5-star read. I loved it, and Loretta Chase, I can't wait to read more of her books. She definitely is amazing. And like, Julia Quinn blurbs her, and she's like one of the finest romance authors of all time. Says one of the best romance authors of all time. So then, again, continuing, because now I was in full historical binge. So I finished Someone to Cherish by Mary Balogh. So this is an arc. This book also comes out on Tuesday, June 29th. This is the last book in the Westcott series. And I was not prepared for how much I would love this. So I read Someone to Romance, I think just earlier this month, in preparation so that I could read this one. Did I read it this month? I must have. I don't know where it is in my list, but this one is about Harry Westcott, who, if you've read the other books in this series, you'll know that he was 20 years old when this series started. And he was the new Duke, or I don't even know what title that they had, and they all found out that they were bastards in the first book of this, and his title went to a cousin, and all their money went to the supposed bastard daughter, who's actually the only true heir. And he went on this kind of destructive journey, and then he ended up in the army, and then he ended up getting injured, and then he's been convalescing for this time. So there's just been a lot that Harry's been through. So now it's been 10 years, and he's 30 years old, and he's ready to have a wife. He has a small home and a living now, and he's been living in this quieter part of town, and there's this widow there who she's been a widow for a few years, and she's the widow of a town clergyman, and she's just seen as this very proper lady. And he walks her home from a social event one day. He's like, hey, I'm going to be going by, let me take you home. And she kind of timidly propositions him to be her lover. And he's kind of like, oh, really? He thinks about it. And then she kind of she's like, that was too bold of me. Like, I should not have done that. I'm sorry. And he's like, wait. Let's talk about it. I don't hate the idea. And they just start this flirtation, and it's so beautiful. But where this really ramped up for me, this book had some of the most romantic lines ever. Like, they're not expecting to fall in love. This is just going to be a dalliance. But what kind of messes with that like vibe is that they are very attracted to each other, and the way that they're able to communicate and stuff, they're like, this is more serious. And she doesn't want to be married again because she felt very trapped in her marriage. Even though it wasn't an abusive one, there was other things going on in this marriage. It was not abusive, but she did not feel loved or cherished. And Harry, before he like meets her, when he decides that because he's going to be looking for a wife, he's planning to go to London for a season, and he's looking for someone to cherish because he's seen all of his loved ones before. This is the 8th book in the series. He's seen all of his loved ones before. Find that. And that's what he wants to find. And there's a part in this book when some things have happened and he's trying to convince her to marry him. And he says, like, she asks him, like, am I your someone to cherish? And he's like, yes. And I don't know how else to convince you, but I ardently love you. And he's like, I know that you're scared, but marrying me won't be giving up control. It won't be losing of freedom. It will be gaining something. It will be gaining this wonderful family that I have, and gaining people who value your opinion and love you. And it was so beautiful. And so what really pushed it over the edge, I'm gonna cry, because again, this is like Mary Balogh's books, very calm and soft. Steam level is about at a 1. They're not my normal, like, I mean, even this is like level 2 spice or whatever. I don't have an official list. Don't ask me about it. But they're not written with the eye towards spicing you up, They're just these beautiful stories. But what pushed this over for me is that near the back half of the book, his whole family comes to town because they want to celebrate his birthday and they're going to have a ball for him. And we get to see all of the couples from before and just get to see their like little moments together. And like our first couple from the series, they've been together for 10 years, and no one ever thought that these two would be together. And when they had found out that they were all bastards, right? These 4 people, the wife, 2 sisters, and 3 sisters and a son, they all found out that they had been lied to. The wife was a bigamist and all these kids were bastards. They thought their life was over. And through love and the relationships and sticking together as a family, to see this like 10 years later of just all of them at this ball, the most beautiful scene in this book is like at the ball at the end. The married couple, Harry and his wife, are like waltzing, like they're doing their first dance, like waltzing around. And as like, I could literally picture this as like a scene in a film, is that as they waltz by, Mary Balogh has a quick little snippet from each couple that we've seen before where they make a joke or they say something quippy, and it's showing each of them and like where they're at in their romance, and they're all at different places, and it's so beautiful. So that was a longer ramble than I meant, and it probably won't mean the same to you if you haven't been reading the Westcott series all this time. But there's a reason why Mary Balogh is a master, and I want to read more of her backlist. I just ordered a few more of her books from Thrift Books. But she writes such a good story. But they are such the opposite of a lot of the books that I talk about, because it is a very quiet, unassuming romance. So just know that, like, this isn't the super sexual tension historical romance that I sometimes talk about, and that I'm even going to talk about right after this. But if you're looking for just this book where you just feel the love and just contentment and peace, like, that's what I felt while reading this book, is like, I was never overly anxious that it wouldn't work out. The angst wasn't driving me crazy. It was just soft and beautiful. So yeah. Then I did a quickie listen, and I listened to The Scandalous Dissolute No Good, Mr. Wright by Tessa Dare. Now, this was the last novella that I had to read by her. I've read all the other ones. Sads. And this one takes place over time. There's this man who has a bad reputation, and there's this woman that they keep meeting up at different events. And they soon realize that this banter that they have going back and forth is actually love. And I mean, it's a shorty, so there's not too much more to say. But this was really fun. It was sweet. I think I still like Beauty and the Blacksmith the best, but I gave this 4 stars. And I mean, if you're reading the novellas, you're going to read this one, and it's great. Then I read Lilac by BB Reid. Yes, I did. So this is a rock star or band reverse harem. One of the band members has died of an overdose, and so there's 3 band members, and they need a guitar player, a backup singer. I don't know 100% what she does, but her name is Braxton, and she gets hired by the label to do that, and they're all really resistant to it. They're very hateful of her in the beginning, but they also all want to fuck her. I gave this 4 stars. I saw this one on TikTok on a video that promised me that this one had MMF stuff. And it does, but it was not a main part of the story. And this is my gripe, okay? I'm not like blaming the book, because this was a recommendation and the recommendation was wrong, because there is one scene with stuff in it. And it was kind of as like a thing to make her happy. It did not appear that it was something they totally enjoy. So they will kiss sometimes. They're not afraid to like touch each other. But these best friends like aren't in love with each other. And so there literally is a scene that she is kind of punishing them and not letting them have sex with her. But she's like, you might convince me if you guys did it. And they were like, that's all that you want? You want us to, I'll fuck him, no big deal. And so they do. And it happened at 90% into the book. And I was like, okay. And then there's a lot of drama happening, of course. It's great. The angst, it's good. And then we're happily ever after. Boom. 4 years later, we're all married and we have a kid. I was talking with Justin last night, and this is what like bugs me, because, and I said it earlier in this video, I like menage, and I'm starting to like some reverse harems, but the thing that I like and what will sell it for me is that once we have decided we'll all be together, like we've decided it's gonna work, we're gonna be together, I need there to be discussion about the dynamic. Like, how does it work? Like, when are we jealous? When are we not? Like, how much time needs to be split? Do we always do stuff together? Are we only allowed when everyone's here? Like, there was no discussion of that. It was just like, since we're all okay dating her, we're gonna have a happily ever after. And I'm like, no. Also, the biggest question that I had, and where, honestly, BB Reid, write another one. Seriously, write me a part 2 to this, and it could make this amazing. They are a band in the public eye most of the year. How are you navigating being a polyamorous couple in the spotlight? You have a baby now. You can't you just skipped over all of the most interesting parts of this story. So I was a little frosty when I finished, because I was like, really? Okay, we just skipped all of that. Okay, fine. I did give it 4 stars, but I was upset. And then finally, I read The Scandal of It All by Sophie Jordan. This is book 2 in the Rogue Files, which I'm trying to finish this series. I was able to find the books on Libby, and I think some of them are on Anyplay. I actually didn't check. I wanted to use Libby because I wanted to listen faster than the Anyplay speed for this one, for these specifically. So this one is about the Graciela, the Duchess of Canterbury, and she is Spanish, which is cool, but she has been the widowed Duchess for a while, and she has decided she maybe wants to take a lover. So she goes to this club with her friend, this sex club with her friend, and oh no, she runs into her stepson and her stepson's friend, Lord Strickland. Lord Strickland helps her hide by by kissing her and like hiding her away from her stepson, and he is enamored with her. He's always kind of been enamored with her because he's been around her for quite a few years. She's only 6 years older than him. I think she's 35 and he's like 29, so it's not a huge age gap or anything, but it is kind of that bit of taboo because it's her stepson's friend. I mean, it's not really taboo, but there you go. And he decides to pursue her, even though they shouldn't. Now, this was very sexually charged. This is dirty. This boy can dirty talk. There was quite a few scenes in this. It was pretty erotic. But the thing is, the hero is extremely pushy. Graciela says no to him in almost every scene that they have together. And I was just kind of disappointed that it's continually him pushing himself on her. She, of course, always gives in. This isn't a full, like, assault. But he never takes her no to mean no, and he just pushes until he gets a yes in every scene. And that kind of pissed me off because this is Sophie Jordan, and I've read other of hers where it's not that way. And I was like, maybe it's just because I noticed those things, being a reviewer and a reader and such, but that was kind of a big deal to me that there wasn't not one where she didn't say no first, and he doesn't listen. So I still ended up giving this 4 stars because of the way this book ends, but there is trigger warnings for previous miscarriage and possible miscarriage in it, which I know is kind of a spoiler saying that, but it was pretty like graphic, some of the stuff that was happening. And I feel like it wasn't given enough weight for what we were talking about. Like, it was done a bit too lightly for the amount of pain and heartache that Graciela has been through. And it was just kind of like glossed over, in my opinion. So, there we go. All right, so those are all the books that I read during this week, which is week 26 of 2021. That's amazing. Wow. This next week, I will be doing the historical romance readathon, so definitely more of those to come. But there's also a lot of new releases coming up. We got Carnal Urges, we got Kingly Bitten, Lessons in Sin comes out. There's a lot of stuff coming our way. So thank you so much for watching this. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week, and you can watch some more of them right now. Bye.